Hello everyone, welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat, and we're back. I didn't think I was going to be back. I have not had a good week, as, we all do. It's now just barely 2026. Yay! If you want my overview of last year in Star Wars, that is posted. Go check that out. Really like making that video. Haven't seen a lot of the shows, but this year is definitely going to be our Star Wars year, considering what we are getting. But I figured I'd take this video and talk about what we're not getting and what got canceled and kind of shook up the system, not only in my fandom, but in the entire Star Wars collective. And that will be the Ben Solo movie that Adam Driver was supposedly working on. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Okay, so this Ben Solo movie, there's it was announced about 2 months ago. And when I say announced, I meant Adam Driver went ahead and just went on a news talk show and ended up just spilling a whole bunch of discussion that he'd been working on a Ben Solo movie since 2020. And shockingly enough, the director was Steven Soderbergh, which, if you don't know, has worked with Adam Driver a whole bunch. If you've not seen Logan Lucky, for one, what are you doing? That is such a fun movie. I believe it's still on Netflix. It's a comedy, but it's also got a lot of good heart in it. A lot of people in my fandom love it. We talk about the movie all the time. So seeing Steven Soderbergh kind of latched onto that already made everyone kind of excited. He's done a couple other movies that have been big hits. I've just only seen Logan Lucky from him, and I immediately love it. It's still iconic and still used, as memes to this day. So we got that info, and it's just like, okay, a lot of times you have actors that talk about wanting to go back to the character, talk about what they could do, because it all comes down to money, and also fun. These Star Wars movies are fun to make. I have to believe that, at least to some people and some actors, depending on how their characters were handled. A lot of people thought that Adam Driver was done with Star Wars in 2020. Didn't even show up to the Rise of Skywalker premiere, was kind of over it, I think done. I don't think he felt like the character was over, even though, again, the movie showed that it was over. But he's always been a fan of Star Wars and really liked those things. And I've talked about it at length of that he really enjoyed his experience and loved his castmates. So I don't know where people get the idea that he absolutely hated the experience and never wants to do it again. There was a run where basically, which is during this time, he was supposedly writing this Ben Solo movie, that he was on his Oscar run. He had lost to Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, and he was nominated for Marriage Story. I think he should have won for Marriage Story, but that is it. After that, he's been nominated a couple other times for Oscars, but it hasn't been as close as probably the one for Marriage Story. He was doing a lot of weirder films, a lot more films that had really high-rated directors upon them. I always think as an actor, that's so stupid. You're limiting yourself to these high-intense films that a lot of times are bad. A lot of times are not good, and yeah, it's not a good idea to work with these people. Like Megalopolis, I think that was kind of a big one. It was by this famous director, and I already kind of hated the premise of the movie, but yeah, people were saying it was really weird. It was like the acting was off, the writing was terrible, and it's like, why would you even put yourself through that? But again, he's got to fund this Ben Solo movie. So a lot of directors, even Taika Waititi, Jordan Peele, they've said, yeah, I would love to make a Star Wars movie. I've brought some ideas up to Lucasfilm, but, they're so busy with wanting to continue their story, and that's kind of where they've left it. Lucasfilm is your first line of defense, not even, Kathleen Kennedy or Dave Filoni. You probably have a team of individuals that kind of sit down with new creatives and are like, hey, what are we going to do about this? What story do you want to tell, and how does it fit within our timeline of events of what we want to do for this franchise? So it gets passed on from Dave Filoni, and then you get to Kathleen Kennedy. And after that, then it actually goes through Disney department. So when he said this, I was like, okay, he probably just wants to get back into the swing of things. Star Wars is really fun. He wants to do something fun again. He continues on and starts to talk about how Lucasfilm was really excited about it. They wanted to see where Ben Solo was going. The placeholder name is The Hunt for Ben Solo. I don't think it was going to be called that. And then that Dave Filoni was excited about it. And Kathleen Kennedy, I totally understand, because she was very open about continuing the sequel trilogy with Rey, so I wasn't too surprised that she was open to Adam Driver. But Dave Filoni's a little surprising, because I feel like Dave kind of has his mindset on how he wants to continue the franchise with kind of introducing or ending off these prequel characters, again, which is not a bad thing. But a lot of people hate Dave Filoni for no reason, and I don't really understand where that comes from. I think he's a great creative. I think he's legitimately George Lucas, which is good and bad. I think having someone that is so deeply invested into the prequels and so deeply invested into the story that George was trying to create is not a bad thing. It only becomes a bad thing when you almost do too much of that, which I think is where Dave is kind of falling into right now. But that's more of a Dave Filoni issue and not a Lucasfilm issue as a whole. And I feel like when Dave works with other creators like Bryce Dallas Howard and Jon Favreau and even Kathleen Kennedy, they were able to balance him out to be like, yeah, no, the prequel stuff is great, but let's also kind of influence this as well. So he works great with others. It's not really that type of thing. Yeah, I don't understand the hate for Dave Filoni. My man is doing as much work as he can. He's awesome. So the fact that he was on board, I was like, okay, wow. And basically he dropped the name Bob Iger and said that he did not feel that, or he did not see how Ben Solo's story continued. I'm sorry, let's just sit with that for a bit. As Star Wars fans, let's just sit with it for a bit. I don't see how a character can come back. So this is from the same man that, or from the same company. Because again, I don't fully think it's Bob Iger's decision. Part of me, no, not even part of me, I full-heartedly feel that most of these decisions are being made by the shareholders, which is the main issue. You should not be running a company based upon shareholders, based upon people who give you money, or based upon statistics. F that. I'm sorry. I understand that you have to run a business, but I do not want a decision to be made by a middle-aged man, or probably white, that only cares about money and profit of why we're not getting creative things done. And again, this is not just Disney, but Disney has been the main kind of issue that they have really cared about their shareholders. What is the one reason of why the sequel trilogy did not do well? There was no plan. They had no plan after Force Awakens, and they had to produce 5 movies in 10 years. And granted, that sounds like a lot of time. That sounds like so much time. It's not. It is not. They were almost doing 2 movies a year. They are not Marvel Studios. Marvel had this great thing going to where if they had a miss, they had a hit, and they were able to make money back on that miss. And it worked out for them. You had, Doctor Strange and I think Ant-Man coming out the same year. That's probably not right, but let's use it as an example. I remember Doctor Strange not doing too well in the box office. Ant-Man skyrocketed on the box office and ended up paying for both of the films. That was great. Star Wars doesn't have that pull. I think it had that pull with Force Awakens. People were already excited. But once you started introducing Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Solo, a Star Wars story. Granted, I love those films. Do not get me wrong. But the general audience does not care enough. Because for one, these films take place in different times. I would love more Star Wars story movies. Again, this is not coming from my opinion. I say they do more of those. But they were scrounging for time and they were scrounging for story. Like, even just hearing about Tony Gilroy talk about Rogue One, I am so surprised of how good that movie came out with not having any terms of a plan. And I think that's just Tony Gilroy in a sense. He is a magician and is able to make a beautiful masterpiece from scraps. But there were a lot of struggles with that film. Solo as well. But Solo was more marketing than it was the actual story and what they wanted to progress with that. It was just kind of a fun movie. Anyway, long story short, shareholders have always kind of kept Disney in a chokehold, probably since 2010. I think after that, like, Disney started really becoming a company and really started caring more about profit than actual entertainment and actual value. So immediately after that comes out, everyone is just pissed. Everyone is super angry, not only at Disney, but at Lucasfilm for them not fighting. They're angry at the fact that we're getting just so many of these, Star Wars stories that people don't really care about. And then the fact of, I would argue that Kylo Ren is probably the most popular character within the sequel trilogy. And I think that's a fact. The fact that I go to Disney and I see mainly Kylo Ren merchandise worn by a lot of individuals is kind of telling. Rey, I think, is up there. I think she's probably the second most popular character. But for some reason, men specifically just really hate Rey. I don't understand where it comes from. She's like, I've never understood that, and I think I've talked about that on this channel. But Rey is really good for the younger kiddos and is really, really good as a new role model. We never really had that, especially for young women, but of course for all children. You'd be shocked of like how many little boys I see wearing, Resistance shirts or Rey shirts, and like it is. I'm legitimately not making that up because I go to Disney so much. It is. She's iconic for like these kiddos because that's, what they grew up with, and, there's Leia and Han and Luke, and granted, I see a lot of, of the OT stuff, not as much as the prequels, but Kylo Ren, I would say, is the most iconic, the ones people think of immediately when talking about the sequel trilogy and what Adam Driver was able to do. So, let's just run through this again. You have an Oscar-nominated actor, a powerhouse of an actor, just in the sense, an amazing director that said actor has worked with and has actively liked and talked about that at length, and you have a very, very compelling story of finding Ben Solo again after he left us in The Rise of Skywalker. So, other than being pissed off at Disney, I kind of just moved on. I was like, yeah, man, that sucks. Like, we could have had it all. But what am I going to do? For one, I have no time to stress over this movie that will probably not get made. I would love to theorize. I think we'll get into more of the Rey movie and all of that. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm not protesting, or I'm not going to go out and protest or be posting every day. I'm still doing my daily posting of Hux until something gets announced with him in it. But unfortunately, Ben Solo has not made it on that list. I care, but I don't care enough. I think that I'm excited for what's to come. People are so weird. Like, I collect a lot. And again, I talk about Hux on this channel mainly every episode. But if the tables were reversed and oh yeah, Donald Gleason was talking with Lucasfilm and it got hit down by Bob Chapek. Yeah, Bob Iger. I would cry. I would have a crash out, but then I would move on with my life. I would not be protesting. I would not be whatever. Because for one, to me, I'm what's even the point? And secondly, a multi-million-dollar company is not going to hear my one voice. Let's Let's be real, y'all. What I would do, though, is I would immediately go to AO3 and write some fan fiction, or do my own writing or theorize of like what we could have gotten and do fan art on that and have fun with it, you know. And I think that's really important. But with Hux, it's a little different character than Kylo. Kylo actively affects Rey, and this is where we're going to kind of get into the Rey movie. Script has been written, and filming should be starting February, is what Daisy Ridley last said. Now, a lot of people were like, interesting. There's a lot of, you know, signs that are kind of pointing to, are they rewriting the Rey movie to kind of have Ben Solo in there? Because Adam's open. You know, so what does that kind of mean for anything? I don't know if it means anything. A lot of people have been so weird, and I feel so bad for Daisy Ridley. Like, she does not deserve all the crap she gets from these weird sickos, but, you know, she's been asked multiple times, like, do you know anything about, like, what Adam Driver has said? Like, will he be in your next movie? You know, and of course she can't say anything, you know, but she definitely said that she did hear about it, and she thought it was really interesting, and that I do believe. I do believe that she probably didn't know, honestly, that Adam was doing it, probably till she got brought up with Kathleen Kennedy as well. Again, I find it odd, though, that, like, the Rey movie was accepted by Bob Iger and not the Ben Solo movie. Like, I find that weird. Like, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm a lover of Rey. I have nothing against Rey, and I want her to get her movie herself, and not where she's trying to find her love interest. But at the same time, like, how do we continue her story of that? I don't want it to just be Luke and her training a new form of Jedi. I want it to be something interesting and something unique to Rey as a character. You know, and how she kind of deals with a loss. My biggest fear is that she's not going to show any emotion. Going to be a little bit more like Ahsoka was, like, after the Clone Wars, and kind of a bit more reserved, which is what she kind of was in The Rise of Skywalker. But I'm hoping we get a nice mix of both, and she's not just depressed all the time because she lost her boyfriend and her dyad. To devil's advocate that, I love the dyad. Y'all know me. I am very, very avid, and I think it's so interesting of the dyad and what it actually is. It's why I really enjoyed The Acolyte and what it was trying to do with Osha and the Stranger, and how it kind of was leading into a dyad in the Force. I found that so interesting, and I still find Kylo and Rey's connection very, very interesting. Mainly it's the fandom that I've just gotten so annoyed with for Rey and Kylo that I can't do it. Not only with the hunt for Ben Solo, they've been doing billboards, doing protests, which go off. You do whatever you gotta do with your time. I do not judge at all. But my biggest issue is now, you know, they were the same ones that were not excited for the Rey movie if Ben Solo wasn't going to come back, and were going to completely boycott it. And then now they want the Rey movie, but only if it has Ben Solo and she's freaking carrying his children. And it's just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, what happened to just shame, for one? But two, like, where and how and why. It doesn't need to be inherently sexual whatsoever, as well as, like, let's actually have them interact as people, not tied to the Resistance or the First Order. We got a little bit of that in The Last Jedi, and I think it did a great job at that, but not enough for me to solidify anything sexual going on with them. A kiss can mean a lot of different things, y'all, and I know I'm going to get hate for that in the comments, but if they do continue their relationship, I love it. But make sure that Rey is in that dominant role. I kind of want to play with not only gender roles, but Rey is a character of kind of being a bit more hardened. And if she is hunting for Ben Solo, right, or Ben Solo is within the movie, I want him to kind of be a little bit more subdued, a little bit more quiet, you know, and kind of taking the leads from Rey and trying to be better. I think that would be so interesting, and something I think Adam could do really, really well acting wise. Same as Daisy. I want her to have her spotlight, and I want her to be confident with who Rey is. You know, I mean, she had to take a break from acting, you know, and she's actually been in a lot of, she's been in a lot of things. Yeah. I think she's been in like 5 different movies, I think, since The Rise of Skywalker, but she took a good break for like 2 to 3 years because of the stress and the pressure and just the hate she was getting online and, you know, all of that insanely bad stuff. So I want her to continue her story the way that she wants. If that includes Ben Solo, then that's fine. But, like, let's not make it so heteronormative, I guess is the best way I could say that. Like, let's really dive deep into their relationship. And, like, let's really see how they see each other and how they are going to move forward. Not only as a dyad, but, you know, as friends and if later as a couple. And that's okay. But you need to think about it realistically and not just like trying to be a self-insert Rey with your like lover Kylo obsession. I love Kylo Ren. I have a whole bunch of his merchandise and is one of probably my favorite character tied with Hux. And it's just like, I would never put self-insert in Hux or Rey, you know, of that. And I just think like, y'all, when you're in fandom, I think after a couple of years, like, you get so used to seeing this shit, but it is terrifying. And I think people need to take a step back to really see, oh, yeah, that's, like, kind of weird that I just said that. Or that's kind of misogynistic. You know, and this is coming from women within the fandom, which is really depressing, too. It's like, come on, y'all. Like, let's... You know, I would like a strong, empowering female that has emotions and feels, but is also fun, as well as, like, she has a dyad and, you know, wants to continue that dyad ship and, you know, finishing off her mission that she promised Leia of bringing her son home. And that, I think, would be sick. So, again, I'm sounding like I'm a hater and I don't want him to come back. I do. I just don't want it to be at the expense of Rey. And, again, I talked about this a lot when I was talking about the initial announcement of the Rey film. This is stuff I'm just reiterating. I've said everything before. So, that's kind of it. That's really my thoughts on if they can do it, if not. At this point, I don't really care if they do it or not. You gotta move on sometime. I think it is what it is. If it happens, that's awesome. I'm super excited. And if it doesn't, I just want the Rey movie. At this point, I would really, really like the Rey movie. Or if anyone at Lucasfilm is listening, I would love, love, love a animated show that's not Resistance, a little bit more mature like the Clone Wars, that is based around the sequel trilogy. Because I feel like there's a lot of great stories we could tell, especially with the First Order. Especially with, like, 3 certain characters. But, yeah, so let me know your thoughts on the Ben Solo movie. I've seen a lot of different opinions. Some people are super excited about it. Some people are legitimately crazy about it and will stop at nothing till they get it. And then some people just don't care. Some people are just like, yeah, whatever. It's just another disappointment by Disney, which, amen to that, because I have been feeling that a lot this year and last year, and probably will continue. So, anyway, y'all, thank you all for listening. I hope this wasn't too much of a downer, but we'll get it. Just trust. Yeah, it will happen. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.